The credit card statement arrived on a Tuesday morning. And that's when I discovered my wife had booked a mountain lodge for $800 for a party I wasn't invited to. I'm Jared Solis, and I fix computers for a living. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills and keeps food on the table in our suburban home outside Portland. My wife Nessa works in corporate marketing, climbing ladders I never cared about climbing myself. She makes twice what I do, and lately she's been making sure I know it. "What's this lodge booking?" I asked, waving the statement as she rushed around the kitchen, grabbing her travel mug and designer bag. "Work thing," she said without looking up. "Team building retreat on my card. I'll reimburse you." Her tone was clipped, dismissive. "It's just the guys from the office. You wouldn't enjoy it anyway. Just the guys." That phrase stuck with me like a splinter under skin. I'd met her colleagues at company parties, Rita from HR always gossiping, Gavin who laughed too loud at his own jokes, and Mitch Kavanaugh, the golden boy with perfect teeth and a trust fund to match. "Since when do work retreats exclude spouses?" I asked. Nessa finally looked at me, and something cold flickered in her green eyes. "Since they're male-only bonding experiences, Jared. You know, like poker nights or hunting trips, things you wouldn't understand." The door slammed behind her, leaving me standing in our kitchen with a credit card statement in my hand and a growing suspicion in my gut. I'm not stupid, despite what Nessa seems to think these days. I know when something doesn't add up. A male-only work retreat at a romantic mountain lodge paid for with my credit card. My wife treating me like an inconvenience she can't wait to shake off. I made coffee and sat at my computer. 20 years of fixing other people's technical problems had taught me patience and attention to detail. Time to put those skills to work. The first thing I discovered was that Nessa had synced her tablet to our home network without changing the default sharing settings. Her messages, emails, and photos were backing up to our shared cloud storage. Most husbands would call this snooping. I called it network maintenance. The group chat was titled Lodge Weekend Warriors. The participants were Nessa, Mitch, Gavin, and 2 other guys from her department I barely knew. But it wasn't the participant list that made my coffee taste like ashes. It was the messages. "Mitch, can't wait for our initiation weekend. Hope Jared doesn't mind lending us his wife for a few days." "Nessa, he's clueless. Besides, what happens at the lodge stays at the lodge." "Gavin, this is going to be epic. Private hot tub, no neighbors for miles." "Nessa, just remember this is our secret. The company can't know about the real reason for this trip." I scrolled through weeks of messages, each one twisting the knife deeper. Plans for the weekend, jokes about my obliviousness, and worst of all, detailed discussions about the after-party activities they had planned. My hands were shaking by the time I reached the most recent exchange. Mitch brought protection for the weekend. Wouldn't want any complications. "Nessa, you think of everything. That's why I chose you over the alternative." "The alternative?" That would be me, apparently. I closed the tablet and walked to our bedroom. In the back of Nessa's closet, behind her winter coats, I found a small suitcase I'd never seen before. Inside were clothes I'd never seen her wear. Lingerie with the tag still on, a bottle of expensive perfume, and a note in Mitch's handwriting for our special weekend. "Can't wait to see you in these." 23 years of marriage. 23 years of working extra hours to pay for her ambitions, supporting her career moves, listening to her complaints about her job while she slowly grew to resent mine. 23 years, and this is what I got in return. I'm not a violent man, never have been. But I'm also not a pushover, despite what my wife and her boyfriend seem to think. I'm methodical. I plan. And I have skills they don't know about. The first call I made was to Pine Ridge Lodge. "Hello, this is Jared Solis. I need to cancel a reservation for this weekend." The cardholder changed his mind about lending his wife to her coworkers for their special retreat. The desk clerk was confused, but helpful. "Certainly, Mr. Solis will process the cancellation immediately. There will be a $50 processing fee worth every penny." The second call was to Nessa's company. I asked to speak with Rita in HR. "Rita, this is Jared Solis, Nessa's husband. I think there's something you should know about this weekend's team-building retreat." "Team-building retreat?" Rita sounded genuinely puzzled. "I don't have any approved team-building activities on the schedule." "That's interesting because, according to my credit card statement, there's definitely a company event planned at Pine Ridge Lodge. Male employees, only apparently very exclusive. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe. Drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I could practically hear Rita's gossip sensors activating. Male employees only. That doesn't sound like approved company policy. No, I didn't think it would, especially not the kind of male-only activities they've been discussing in their group chat. I'd be happy to forward you some screenshots. Please do. I'll look into this immediately. The third call was to my oldest friend Derek, who runs an auto repair shop downtown and knows everyone in town. "Derek, it's Jared. I need a favor and probably a beer or 12. "What's going on, buddy?" "My wife is planning to cheat on me this weekend with her coworkers at a lodge I'm paying for." Derek was quiet for a moment. "Then, what do you need?" "Information, and maybe some help teaching a few people that actions have consequences. Meet me at the outpost in an hour. And Jared, bring those screenshots. This town loves a good story, and I have a feeling this one's going to be memorable." I printed out the group chat messages, gathered the evidence I'd found, and headed for the door. My phone buzzed with a text from Nessa. "Working late tonight? Don't wait up." I texted back. "No problem. I'll be busy too. Have a great evening." She had no idea how great my evening was about to become. The outpost sits on the edge of town like a weathered bookmark between civilization and the wilderness beyond. It's the kind of place where everyone knows your business before you do, and secrets have a half-life of about 30 minutes. Perfect for what I had in mind. Derek was waiting at our usual table in the back corner, 2 beers already sweating on the scarred wooden surface. He's built like the mechanic he is. All broad shoulders and calloused hands with graying hair and eyes that missed nothing. We've been friends since high school, back when I was fixing cars instead of computers, and life seemed a lot less complicated. "Show me what you've got," he said without preamble. I spread the printed screenshots across the table like evidence in a court case. Derek read them slowly, his expression growing darker with each page. "Son of a gun," he muttered. "She's really doing this weekend, or was anyway." I canceled the lodge reservation this afternoon. Derek looked up sharply. "They know yet?" "Nessa's phone has been buzzing all evening. I'm guessing Mitch got the cancellation notice. What's your play here, Jared? Because if you're thinking of just letting this slide, I'm not." The words came out harder than I intended. 23 years, Derek. 23 years of her treating me like I'm not good enough, not smart enough, not ambitious enough. And now this. Derek nodded slowly. "So what do you need?" "Information for starters. What do you know about Mitch Kavanaugh?" "Rich boy. His daddy owns half the commercial real estate downtown, including the building where your wife works. Kid's never worked a real day in his life. But he's got that corporate charm that impresses people who don't know better. What else? He's got a reputation. This isn't his first time sniffing around married women, but he's careful about it. Never leaves evidence. Never gets caught until now. I tapped the screenshots. He got sloppy. Derek grinned, and it wasn't a nice expression. What else do you need? They're going to move the party somewhere else. Probably tonight, once they figure out the lodge is canceled. I need to know where. Leave that to me. This town's got ears, and most of them drink here on weeknight. As if summoned by our conversation, the bar's front door opened and Gavin walked in, looking frazzled and checking his phone every few seconds. He spotted us and hesitated, probably wondering if he should approach. Derek solved his dilemma by waving him over. Gavin, haven't seen you in here before. What brings you to our little establishment? Gavin approached cautiously. He knew Derek by reputation, if not personally, and he definitely recognized me. Just grabbing a quick drink. Stressful day at work, I bet, I said mildly. Weekend plans falling through can be really disappointing. Gavin's face went pale. I don't know what you mean. Sure you do. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the screenshots. Lodge Weekend Warriors, remember? Although, I guess you'll need to find a new venue now. Gavin stared at the phone like it might bite him. How did you get these messages? Easy. Nessa syncs everything to our home network. Every text, every email, every photo, including the ones she's been sending to Mitch for the past 6 months. The color drained completely from Gavin's face. Look, Jared, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Derek leaned forward. See, Gavin, here's your problem. Jared's got evidence of what you people have been planning, and in about 5 minutes, I'm going to start sharing these screenshots with everyone in this bar. You know how fast news travels in this town. Unless, I added, you'd like to tell us where the party's moving to. Save yourself some embarrassment. Gavin looked around the bar like a trapped animal. The place was filling up with the usual after-work crowd, including several people who worked in the same building as Nessa. His reputation was about to become very public. Mitch's father has a cabin, he said quietly. Up on Ridge Road. That's where we're going instead. See how easy that was? Derek said cheerfully. Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go back to your friends and tell them the party's off. All of it. Because if it's not, these screenshots are going to find their way to HR, to Mitch's father, and to everyone else who might find them interesting. I can't do that. Mitch will? Mitch will what? I asked. Fire you? Blackball you? Seems to me you're already in pretty deep trouble. This is your chance to get out before it gets worse. Gavin stared at the screenshots for another long moment, then nodded miserably. I'll talk to them. Good man, Derek said. Now run along. And Gavin, if I hear this party happens anyway, I'm going to be very disappointed, and you don't want to disappoint me. Gavin practically ran for the door. Derek and I watched him go. Then Derek turned to me with a grin. That was fun, but you know they're not going to listen to him, right? I'm counting on it. What's the real plan? I pulled out a business card I'd been carrying in my wallet. Henry Cavanaugh, Mitch's father. I looked him up this afternoon. Old school businessman, very concerned about his family's reputation. I don't think he'd approve of his son using the family cabin for this kind of party. You're going to call him? Already did. Left a message with his secretary, along with some very interesting attachments. Derek laughed out loud. You devious son of a gun. What else? Rita from HR is very interested in these screenshots. Apparently, male-only company events violate several policies. She's planning to have a conversation with Nessa first thing Monday morning. And I've been busy this afternoon. Joint bank accounts, credit cards, shared subscriptions. Amazing how much access a husband has to his wife's digital life when she's been careless about passwords. Derek raised his beer in a toast. To consequences, I agreed. My phone buzzed with a text from Nessa. Plans changed for tonight. Going to Rita's for girls' night. Don't wait up. I showed Derek the message. He shook his head. She's still lying. Of course she is, but that's okay. Let her dig the hole deeper. Another text. This one from an unknown number. This is Henry Kavanaugh. We need to talk. Can you meet me at my office tomorrow morning at 9 ASK? I showed Derek that one too. Game on, he said. My phone rang, Nessa's ringtone. I let it go to voicemail, then played the message on speaker. Jared, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to stop. Cancel whatever you've done and mind your own business. This doesn't concern you. Derek raised an eyebrow. Doesn't concern you. It's your wife and your credit card. She's scared. I realize they all are, which means they know I'm serious. What's next? Next, we wait and we watch and we let them make their next move. And then I smiled, and for the first time in months, it felt genuine. Then we show them what happens when you underestimate the wrong person. Henry Kavanaugh's office occupied the entire top floor of the Kavanaugh building downtown, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a commanding view of our small city. The man himself was exactly what I'd expected. Silver-haired, impeccably dressed, and radiating the kind of authority that comes from 3 generations of family money. Mr. Salas, he said, gesturing to a leather chair across from his massive oak desk. Thank you for coming, and thank you for bringing this matter to my attention. I settled into the chair and studied his face. Henry Kavanaugh was angry, but it was the cold, controlled anger of a man who'd built an empire by never losing his temper in public. I take it you've spoken with your son. I have. His voice was clipped. Mitchell seems to believe this is all a misunderstanding, that these messages were taken out of context. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the most damning screenshot. This context clear enough? Henry read Mitch's message about bringing protection for the weekend, his jaw tightening with each word. My son has always been impulsive, but this crosses several lines. It crosses more than lines, Mr. Kavanaugh. It crosses into territory that could destroy your family's reputation if it becomes public. Is that a threat? It's a fact. Your son is planning to use your cabin for activities that would embarrass you, your business, and your family name. I'm giving you the chance to handle this privately before it becomes a public spectacle. Henry was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the city below. What do you want? I want it stopped. All of it. The party, the affair, the lies. I want my wife to face consequences for her actions. And I want your son to understand that other people's marriages aren't his playground. And in return, this stays between us. No social media, no gossip, no public embarrassment for the Kavanaugh name. Henry nodded slowly. Consider it done. The cabin will be unavailable this weekend. In fact, it will be unavailable to Mitchell for the foreseeable future. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Mr. Salas. I have a feeling this situation is far from over. He was right. I was halfway home when my phone started buzzing with angry texts from Nessa. She'd obviously heard about the cabin being off limits, and she wasn't taking it well. What did you do? You're ruining everything. We need to talk now. I ignored them and drove to the outpost. Derek was already there, along with half the town's afternoon drinking crowd. Word travels fast in small places. And the story of Jared Solis fighting back against his cheating wife was apparently the entertainment of the day. "How'd it go with Daddy Kavanaugh?" Derek asked as I slid into the booth across from him. "Cabin's off limits. Mitch is in the doghouse. But you're right. They're not giving up." "Of course not. Rich boy's probably never been told no in his life." "What's the next move?" Before I could answer, the bar's front door slammed open and Nessa stormed in, her face flushed with anger and her eyes scanning the room until they locked onto mine. Conversations died as she marched across the floor, her heels clicking against the worn wooden planks like gunshots. "You son of a gun," she hissed loud enough for everyone to hear. "What gives you the right to interfere in my life?" I looked up at her calmly, aware that every person in the bar was watching our domestic drama unfold. "Hello, Nessa. How was girls' night at Rita's?" Her face went even redder. "You know exactly where I was." "Do I?" "Because Rita called me this morning. Apparently she never invited you over last night. In fact, she was home alone, reviewing some very interesting screenshots I sent her." The bar had gone completely silent. Even the jukebox seemed to be holding its breath. "You had no right to go through my private messages," Nessa said, but her voice had lost some of its edge. "Private messages sent on devices connected to our shared network, discussing plans paid for with our joint credit card involving my wife's affair with her co-worker." I kept my voice level. "Conversational. Which part of that sounds private to you?" Someone in the back of the bar whistled low. Derek grinned and took a sip of his beer. "It's not an affair," Nessa said desperately. It's complicated. Complicated." I pulled out my phone and opened the group chat. Let me read some of these messages aloud. Maybe the folks here can help us figure out how complicated it really is. "Don't you dare." Mitch says, and I quote, "Can't wait for our initiation weekend. Hope Jared doesn't mind lending us his wife for a few days." I looked around the bar. Anyone here think that sounds like a business meeting? A few people chuckled. Someone called out, "Doesn't sound like any business meeting I've been to." "Here's another one," I continued. "Your response, he's clueless. Besides, what happens at the lodge stays at the lodge." I looked up at Nessa. Still complicated. Her face had gone from red to pale. "Stop it." "Oh, but we're just getting to the good parts," Gavin writes. "This is going to be epic. Private hot tub, no neighbors for miles." And you respond with, "Stop." Nessa lunged for my phone, but Derek was faster. He intercepted her arm gently but firmly. Now, he said. "Let the man finish reading. We're all very interested in how this story ends." The bar's front door opened again, and Mitch walked in, flanked by Gavin and looking like he was ready for a fight. The crowd turned to watch this new development with the enthusiasm of spectators at a boxing match. "There's my boy Mitch," Derek called out cheerfully. "Come on over. Your girlfriend was just sharing some of your love letters with the group." Mitch's face darkened as he took in the scene. Nessa standing frozen beside our table, me holding my phone with their messages displayed, and an entire bar full of people watching the drama unfold. "You need to stop this right now," Mitch said, pointing at me. "This is harassment." Harassment? I stood up slowly, aware that I had the crowd's complete attention. "You mean like planning to seduce someone's wife at a party paid for with her husband's credit card? That kind of harassment? That's not what happened." "Really?" I held up my phone again because I've got screenshots that say otherwise. "Want me to read your message about bringing protection for the weekend?" Mitch's face went white. "You can't prove anything. I can prove everything. Messages, photos, credit card statements, hotel reservations. I've got a paper trail that would make an accountant weep with joy. The crowd was eating this up. Someone had started recording with their phone. This was going to be all over social media within the hour. "You're pathetic," Mitch said, desperation creeping into his voice. No wonder she wanted someone better. That got a reaction from the crowd. Someone booed. Derek stood up, all 6F and 200 lb of him. "That's enough," Derek said quietly. But Mitch was too angry and too scared to back down. "You want to know the truth? She came to me. She's been unhappy with you for years. This weekend was her idea." I looked at Nessa, who was staring at the floor. "Is that true?" She didn't answer. "Nessa," I said louder, "is that true?" Finally, she looked up, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Shame. "Jared, it's a simple question. Was this your idea?" "Yes," she whispered. The bar erupted in murmurs and exclamations. Derek shook his head in disgust. Someone called out, "That's cold, lady." I felt something break inside me, but it wasn't my heart. It was the last chain holding me back. "Well," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I guess that settles it." I walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "Oh, and Mitch, you might want to check your car before you drive home. Sometimes when you treat people like garbage, karma has a way of returning the favor." The crowd parted as I headed for the exit. Behind me, I heard Mitch asking nervously, "What did he mean about my car?" Derek's laughter followed me out into the afternoon sunshine. The next morning brought two pieces of excellent news. The first was a call from Rita in HR, informing me that Nessa had been suspended pending a full investigation into policy violations and inappropriate workplace conduct. The second was a video message from my neighbor, Mrs. Glay, who had apparently been documenting Mitch's visits to our house for months. Mrs. Glay is 73 years old, lives alone with 3 cats, and considers neighborhood surveillance her civic duty. Most people find her annoying. I was beginning to think she was a treasure. "I hope this helps, dear," she said in her voicemail. "I always knew that young man was up to no good. The way he looked at your wife, even when you were standing right there, shameful." The video showed Mitch's car in our driveway on at least a dozen occasions over the past 6 months, always during my work hours. Timestamps, license plate clearly visible, and in several clips, Mitch and Nessa embracing on our front porch. I was studying the footage when Derek called. "You need to get down here," he said without preamble. Mitch's car situation has gotten interesting. I found Derek at his shop standing next to Mitch's BMW, which was sitting on jack stands with all 4 wheels removed. Mitch himself was pacing nearby, red-faced and gesticulating wildly, while Derek examined the lug nuts scattered on the ground. "What happened?" I asked innocently. "Someone loosened all the lug nuts on 3 wheels," Derek said, holding up the evidence. "Lefty just 1 nut per wheel, barely hand-tight. Car made it about 2 blocks before the wheels started wobbling. Lucky he was going slow, or this could have been really dangerous." Mitch spun around when he heard my voice. "You did this." "Did what?" "I don't know anything about cars. That's why I bring mine to Derek. This is vandalism. I'm calling the police." Derek scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Well, you could do that, but you'd have to explain why someone might want to mess with your car. And that conversation might get awkward given what happened at the outpost yesterday. This is harassment." "No," I said calmly. "Harassment is what you've been doing to my marriage. This is just bad luck. Cars are complicated machines. Sometimes things go wrong." A police cruiser pulled into the lot, and Officer Martinez climbed out. I knew him from high school. He'd been a year behind me and Derek. "Got a call about vandalism," Martinez said, looking around the scene. "What's the situation?" Mitch launched into an explanation about his car being sabotaged, pointing at me and demanding I be arrested. Martinez listened patiently, then turned to Derek. "What's your professional opinion?" Derek shrugged. Lug nuts can work loose over time, especially if they weren't properly tightened during the last service. It's unusual for it to happen to 3 wheels at once, but not impossible. But someone had to. Mitch started. "Can you prove someone tampered with your vehicle?" Martinez asked. "Well, no, but any witnesses? Security cameras?" Mitch deflated slightly. "No." Martinez turned to me. "You know anything about this?" "I heard about it from Derek. Sounds like Mitch needs to find a better mechanic." Martinez nodded and closed his notepad. "Seems like an unfortunate mechanical failure. I'd recommend having your car serviced more regularly, sir." After Martinez left, Mitch turned to me with pure hatred in his eyes. "This isn't over." "You're right," I agreed. "It's not." That evening, I put the final phase of my plan into motion. I called Pinneridge Lodge and made a new reservation, this time for a party of 12. Then I sent out invitations to a very select group. Rita from HR, Henry Kavanaugh, Mrs. Glay, Derek, several of Nessa's former friends who'd been asking questions since the bar incident, and a few other interested parties. The invitation was simple. "You're invited to witness the conclusion of a very interesting story. Saturday, 7:00 p.m. Pinneridge Lodge. Refreshments provided." I sent a separate message to Nessa and Mitch, claiming I wanted to apologize and make amends. Could they meet me at the lodge Saturday evening to discuss a peaceful resolution? They both agreed, probably thinking they could manipulate me into backing down. Saturday arrived gray and cold, with the promise of rain in the heavy clouds gathering over the mountains. I arrived at Pine Ridge Lodge early and spent an hour setting up. The lodge's main room had a large stone fireplace, comfortable seating, and most importantly, a projection screen used for corporate presentations. I connected my laptop to the projector and loaded up the evidence I'd been gathering: screenshots, photos, videos, financial records, and Mrs. Grayley's surveillance footage. Then I waited. My invited guests arrived first. Rita looked curious and slightly vindictive. Henry Kavanaugh appeared grimly determined. Mrs. Glay was practically vibrating with excitement. Derek brought beer and a folding chair, settling in like he was preparing to watch his favorite movie. "What exactly are we here for?" Rita asked. "Justice," I said simply. Nessa and Mitch arrived together, which was their first mistake. They walked into the lodge's main room holding hands, which was their second mistake. When they saw the assembled crowd, they froze. "What is this?" Nessa demanded. "This," I said, clicking to the first slide, "is the truth." The projection screen lit up with the group chat messages blown up large enough for everyone to read clearly. I watched Nessa's face go pale as her own words appeared on the wall. He's clueless. Besides, what happens at the lodge stays at the lodge. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, "I'd like to tell you a story about trust, betrayal, and consequences." I clicked through the evidence methodically. The messages, the credit card statements, the hotel reservations, the photos of Mitch's car in our driveway. The room was silent except for the occasional gasp or muttered comment from the audience. "This is illegal," Mitch shouted. "You can't show private messages." These messages were sent using devices connected to my home network. I replied calmly. Legally, I have every right to access them, but more importantly, They document a conspiracy to commit adultery using my financial resources. Henry Kavanaugh stood up, his face like carved granite. Mitchell, outside now, Dad? I can explain. Outside. As they left, I continued the presentation. Mrs. Glay's surveillance footage was particularly effective, showing months of secret visits and stolen embraces. Several people in the audience were taking notes. Rita was practically bouncing in her seat. "This is better than cable TV," she whispered. When I reached the final slide, I turned to face Nessa directly. "Do you have anything to say?" She stood there in her expensive dress and designer shoes, looking small and trapped. "Jared, please. We can work this out." "Work it out?" I gestured to the screen. "You plan to cheat on me with your coworker, using my money to pay for it, and then lie about it being a work event. What exactly would you like to work out?" It was a mistake. I was confused. "Unhappy? You were unhappy?" My voice rose for the first time all evening. "You were unhappy. So you decided to destroy our marriage instead of talking to me about it." The room was watching this exchange like a tennis match, heads turning back and forth between us. "I want a divorce," Nessa said suddenly. "Good," I replied. "Because you're getting one along with half of nothing, since our prenup is very clear about adultery clauses." Her face went white. "We don't have a prenup." I smiled and clicked to one final slide. A legal document signed and notarized from our wedding 23 years ago. "Actually, we do. You signed it the day before our wedding. Adultery voids your claim to alimony and property division." Derek started laughing. Rita was taking pictures of the document with her phone. Mrs. Glay was practically applauding. Nessa stared at the prenup like it was written in a foreign language. "I don't remember signing that." "You were 23 and in love. Or at least I thought you were in love. Turns out I was half right." Henry and Mitch returned, both looking grim. Henry addressed the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to apologize for my son's behavior. This situation is unacceptable, and there will be consequences." "What kind of consequences?" Derek asked cheerfully. "Mitchell's employment with Kavanaugh's Industries is terminated, effective immediately. His trust fund is frozen pending a review of his conduct, and he will be moving out of the family home by the end of the week." Mitch looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. "Dad, you can't. I can, and I have. Your behavior has brought shame on our family name. That has consequences." I looked around the room at the assembled witnesses to Nessa and Mitch's humiliation. "I think we're done here." As people began filing out, chattering excitedly about what they'd witnessed, Nessa approached me one last time. "Was this really necessary?" she asked quietly. I looked at her. This woman I'd loved for more than half my life, and felt nothing but pity. "You made it necessary," I said. "Actions have consequences, Nessa. You taught me that." She left without another word, followed by Mitch, who was already on his phone trying to explain the situation to someone. Derek was the last to leave. "That was beautiful, man. Absolutely beautiful." "It's not over yet," I said. "What's left?" I smiled and began packing up my laptop. Monday morning, when Rita shares her findings with the rest of the company. And then, everyone in town will know exactly what kind of people they really are. Derek grinned. "Remind me never to get on your bad side. Just don't cheat on your wife with her coworkers, and we'll be fine." As I drove home through the gathering darkness, my phone buzzed with texts from friends and neighbors who'd already heard about the evening's events. The story was spreading, growing, taking on a life of its own. By morning, everyone would know, and that was exactly what I wanted. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that makes everything seem possible. I was sitting in my kitchen drinking coffee and reading the local newspaper's online edition when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Rita's number. "Jared, you need to see this," she said without preamble. "Can you get down to the office building? There's something happening you'll want to witness." 20 minutes later, I was standing across the street from the Kavanaugh building, watching a small crowd gather on the sidewalk. Derek appeared at my elbow, grinning like a man who'd won the lottery. "Heard there was going to be a show," he said. "Wouldn't miss it." Through the building's glass lobby, I could see Nessa and Mitch standing near the elevators, both looking haggarded and desperate. They were surrounded by what appeared to be security guards and several people in expensive suits. "That's the company's legal team," Rita said, joining us on the sidewalk. "They arrived an hour ago with termination papers and a non-disclosure agreement." Non-disclosure? The company doesn't want this story getting any bigger than it already is. Bad for the corporate image. They're offering Nessa 6-month severance if she signs an agreement promising not to discuss her employment or the circumstances of her termination. Is she going to sign? Rita shrugged. Depends on how badly she needs the money. Word is her lawyer advised her to take the deal. Through the glass, I watched Nessa sign a stack of documents while Mitch paced nearby, talking rapidly into his phone. Even from across the street, I could see the defeat in her posture. "What about Mitch?" Derek asked. "Daddy cut him off completely," Rita said with obvious satisfaction. "No job, no trust fund, no family support. He's been calling everyone he knows trying to find work. But the story's gotten around. Nobody wants to hire someone with his reputation." My phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Glay. "The moving truck is at your house. Nessa's packing her things." I showed the message to Derek and Rita. "Want to go watch?" Derek asked. "No," I said after a moment. "I've seen enough." But as we turned to leave, the building's front doors opened, and Nessa emerged carrying a cardboard box and looking lost. She spotted me across the street and hesitated, as if she might cross over and say something. Instead, she got into a waiting taxi and disappeared into the morning traffic. Mitch followed a few minutes later, also carrying a box, also looking defeated. He didn't even glance in our direction. "That's it then," Rita said. "Show's over." "Not quite," I said. That afternoon, I drove to the house I'd shared with Nessa for 15 years. The moving truck was gone, but her car was still in the driveway. I found her in our bedroom, packing the last of her clothes into suitcases. "Hello, Nessa." She looked up, and I was startled by how much she'd aged in just a few days. The confident, ambitious woman who'd walked out of our kitchen last week was gone, replaced by someone who looked tired and beaten. "I'm almost finished," she said quietly. "Take your time." We stood in awkward silence for a moment, surrounded by the remnants of our marriage. Empty closets, bare walls where her pictures had hung, boxes labeled with her new address. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly. "For which part?" "All of it. The lying, the cheating, the way I treated you. You didn't deserve any of that." I sat down on the edge of the bed we'd shared for so many years. "Why, Nessa? That's what I can't understand. Why throw away everything we had?" She sat down beside me, careful to maintain distance. "I don't know. I was bored, I guess. Restless. You were always so steady, so reliable, and I started to resent that. I wanted excitement, drama, passion, and Mitch provided that. I thought he did, but it turns out he was just using me. Same as I was using you." She laughed bitterly. "Turns out I'm not as smart as I thought I was." "What will you do now?" I don't know. The severance will last a few months, but after that, she shrugged. I'll figure something out. I always do. And Mitch. Mitch is on his own. Turns out rich boys aren't very appealing when they're not rich anymore. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood where we'd planned to grow old together. I loved you, you know. For 23 years, I loved you more than anything in the world. I know, she whispered. And I threw it away for nothing. Not for nothing. For excitement, for passion, for all the things I apparently couldn't give you. Jared, it's okay. I understand now. We wanted different things from life, and instead of talking about it, you decided to take what you wanted and lie about it. She finished packing in silence while I watched from the doorway. When she was done, she carried her suitcases to the front door and set them down. The divorce papers are on the kitchen table, she said. I signed them. Thank you. The house is yours. The cars, the savings account, everything. I'm not going to fight the prenup. I appreciate that. She opened the front door and then turned back one last time. For what it's worth, you're a good man, Jared Solis. Better than I deserved. Yeah, I said. I am. She left without another word. I stood in the doorway and watched her drive away, carrying the ruins of her life in the back of her sedan. Mrs. Glay appeared on her front porch, probably hoping for one last bit of drama, but there was nothing left to see. My phone rang. Derek, how'd it go? It's over, I said. How do you feel? I thought about that for a moment, standing in the doorway of the house that was now mine, alone, looking out at the life I was about to rebuild from scratch. Free, I said finally. I feel free. Want to celebrate? First round's on me. Thanks, but not tonight. I think I'll just stay home and enjoy the quiet. After Derek hung up, I walked through the house room by room, seeing it with new eyes. 23 years of marriage ended not with violence or screaming, but with cardboard boxes and signed documents. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. This is Henry Kavanaugh. Thank you for handling this situation with discretion. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to call, I typed back. Justice was enough, but thank you. Another text. This one from Rita. Best Monday morning entertainment I've had in years. You should charge admission next time. I was still smiling at that when Mrs. Glay knocked on my door. I brought cookies, she announced, holding up a plate of chocolate chip cookies that smelled like heaven. Thought you might need some comfort food. That's very kind of you, Mrs. Glay. Call me Eleanor, and for what it's worth, you're better off without her. I never liked the way she looked at you, like you were something she was stuck with, instead of something she chose. I invited Eleanor in for coffee, and we sat at my kitchen table while she told me every detail of Nessa's departure, complete with commentary on her choice of moving company and the suspicious number of designer shoes she'd packed. What will you do now? Eleanor asked as she prepared to leave. Live my life, I said. On my own terms, for the first time in 23 years. Good for you. And if you ever need someone to keep an eye on things while you're at work, you know where to find me. After she left, I sat alone in my quiet house and thought about the future. No more walking on eggshells around Nessa's moods. No more pretending to be interested in her corporate ambitions. No more feeling like I wasn't good enough, smart enough, successful enough. Just me, my work, my friends, and all the possibilities that came with starting over at 46. My phone rang one last time. The caller ID showed Mitch's number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won again. What do you want, Mitch? You destroyed my life, he said, and I could hear the desperation in his voice. No, I replied calmly. You destroyed your own life. I just made sure everyone could see what you'd done. I lost everything because of you. You lost everything because you tried to steal my wife and got caught. Actions have consequences, remember? This isn't over. Yes, I said and hung up the phone. It is. I turned off my phone, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat on my back porch as the sun set over the mountains. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new possibilities. But tonight, for the first time in years, I was exactly where I wanted to be. And that was enough.